This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, good morning and welcome to Open Line. I'm Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly today on this beautiful day, I should say. Looking at a high of 15 in metro area, blue sky, splitting the rocks out there right now. Gotta love it. Looking up to 17 tomorrow, a little cloudier. So hopefully spring has finally sprung in these parts. It hadn't in Toronto last week when we paid a visit to the Big Smoke. It was still pretty cool. Walked down Front Street. It was like walking down Water Street. It was a little bit of RDF, just like home. Felt just like home. So, a ton of things we can gab about on the program today, thank goodness. But speaking of TO, Game 2 tonight for all you long-suffering Leafs fans. I say that. I was born the year last time the Leafs won the Cup, so there you go. But big win, of course, on Monday, taking Game 1 from the defending Cup champs, Florida Panthers. Funny, the chants on the streets of Toronto last Thursday night when they eliminated the Senators was, "We want Florida." Well, careful what you wish for. Yes, took Game 1, but there's still a lot of certainty around it. Still a chance netminder Anthony Stolarz could play tonight. Took a pretty innocent-looking elbow to the head from his so-called buddy Sam Bennett the other night, who won't face any disciplinary action, by the way. I think that's the right call there. Looked pretty innocuous. And the Oilers stole another one, I should say, last night. They beat Vegas in Vegas, 4-2. No easy feat there. Came back from 2-0 deficit. Again, I think that's the fifth straight, comeback win they're talking about. Could be a record, I think, for comeback wins. And I suppose when you have a Connor McDavid who can decide to take the game on himself from anyone, you might get away with that. But sooner or later, that might catch up to you too. So, the Oilers keep going. Great. Keep Canadian content in the playoffs. Of course, the Jets as well. Caps and Canes last night, overtime. The Canes knocked off the Caps 2-1. I don't know how you keep them down. That's going to be an interesting series. And I know we have more eyes around here on the NHL playoffs than the NBA playoffs, but if you're so inclined, the drama is palpable. It was wild, said it before, but it's the ultimate reality TV, sports in general. And the Pacers and Cavs last night didn't disappoint us for twice now that the Pacers, the upstart Pacers, have knocked off the number one seeded Cavs at home. Took 2 games now. Last night was crazy. Big comeback. And last-minute buzzer beaters is wicked. Let's see. And then we can talk all kinds of other sports. No problem at all. You can always interject just because Patty or myself or whoever maybe filling in here on the show might start off with a few things. As Patty says, it's not we're not locked into anything. And any time later in the show, you can always talk about this stuff. 1-888-590-VOCM, that's 8626, or 709-273-5211, as if you guys don't already know the numbers. But sometimes we riddle them off, and it just assumes that they're on the top of your head. But there they are, and they're all over our website. Let's see. So the ECMA's kickoff today in St. John's. Live music starting around noon in the lobby of the Delta, actually. So if you're down around, you're wondering, how come that's happening? Why isn't that happening all the time? Be a good idea. But in any event, there'll be some live jamming around the Delta Hotel this afternoon, starting around lunchtime, as then the whole thing runs into the weekend. A little bit of controversy underneath the headlines, but I think, we're going to put all that aside, and St. John's is going to show them one hell of a time, as we always do. So a big shindig tonight with the kickoff party at the Jags Sound House. You may have heard Sarah Newell on earlier with Violet. They'll be performing. Let's see, our own Sarah Newell. Big gala tomorrow night at the Mary Brown Centre. You can still, I think, there may still be tickets left to that. And that'll be quite an event as well. So the city will be alive more than usual next few days for sure, with music as players and participants make their way to the various events. And of course, today, 133 Cardinals are gathering as the conclave begins to select the next pope. We can talk all about that. See some pretty loud voices out of the United States saying that the next pope should be American, not Trump. I don't think that's happening. Well, you never know. Never say never, as President Trump will say. I'll get to that shortly. But there's not enough white smoke jokes going around, I can tell you that. I'm kind of sick of them already, but the real white smoke we'll be waiting for as the new Pope, as Cardinals gather to elect the new Pope. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, of course. That'll be some must-watch TV. The cameras of the world will be focused on that small chimney in St. Peter's Square. It's not hard to tell I don't host this program very early. At this hour in the morning, I cannot untangle my tongue. Okay, so some must-watch TV yesterday with PM Carney's visit to the White House. And, he really did have the thinnest of lines to walk. And I thought he pulled it off. So many, ways this could have went sideways. And make no mistake, this was the test, right? I mean, he's elected primarily to deal with this. It's acknowledged by everyone that we, the Canadians, felt that he would be the best positioned to be able to make this kind of a kiss-the-ring meeting with the president, during the headlights in the Oval Office with Marco and Howard and J.D. Vance sitting there ready to pounce. But they really had no opportunity to pounce because Carney had his you-know-what together. But, it's just so many elements to that spectacle yesterday. I mean, remember when the PM and U.S. Pres, I can remember a time when, PM and a U.S. President meeting or a summit was such a formality or a routine. We didn't care. It didn't bat an eye. Think back to 85, Mulroney and Reagan singing When Irish Eyes Are Smiling Together, swaying back and forth. Those days are gone, at least for now. But we did learn one very important fact yesterday. And there is, as suspected, no rhyme or reason to the tariffs. Trump was asked point blank, could anything Carney offer fix all of that? Nope. Quote, just the way it is. Well, that kind of opens, it kind of puts it to rest in many ways. I mean, we know it's not the false allegations of no trade back and forth between the countries. I mean, it's proven when $350 billion goes into and back and forth. So, and especially with tariffs, we all know that. But sometimes when the naysayers say it so much, naysayers, i.e. Trump, say it so much that some people begin to believe it and drink the Kool-Aid. But this whole, kiss the ring, let me belittle you on live cable TV. But the bigger picture yesterday, we can talk about it here. I want to know. And Carney was almost an afterthought in the Oval Office at times as Trump went off on Ukraine and the Houthi rebels, apparently claiming to have some kind of major announcement over the next few days as he flies to the Middle East. So we'll see what that is. And he sort of hinted, and it was kind of very odd, such a big, they're keeping a secret from the entire world about the Mideast. Well, odd is par for the course, really, isn't it? And I like Carney's little, Carney, showed his comfort in the room by just interjecting and said, well, I'm on the edge of my seat, Mr. President, which got a couple of laughs. He got a few laughs yesterday, which put him at ease. Doesn't hurt, except when it came to the artificial line. And, of course, Carney had his moment and his line saved up. I'm sure there was a strategy to this, but Canada not for sale. Not for sale is one thing, but, the whole issue of, never say never back and forth, and then Carney sort of mouthing never, never, never. So it was all very interesting. The president referred to him as Mark throughout, but you got to pick your battles, and I think he got out of it as unscathed as he possibly could have. He even pandered a bit to Trump, calling him a transformational president, talking about revitalizing NATO. We all know that's not the word most of us would use. Gutting it might be a better word, but, you're there, and you got to pick your battles. And whether or not you want to get into a Zelensky-type back and forth, I don't think anybody wanted to see that. So, and he even had he even went on the offensive, talking about, just point blank saying that the U.S. is taking advantage of the USMCA, the current trade deal, to implement new tariffs on top of those. And that goes back to the dairy and the eggs and the percentages that are tacked on after certain quotas or certain amounts are levied back and forth over the border. And, at that moment, you have J.D. Vance there, you have Marco Rubio there, and you have Howard Lutnick, the economic negotiator for Trump. And neither one could say a word to that. And the pained face on J.D. Vance said it all, really. They didn't even have to speak. So he knew what he was talking about. He went in prepared, and good on him for that. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have jumped on him as quick as they could with the sort of you have no hand line that he laid on Zelensky. So Yeah, so we can talk all about that. I've only touched on a few. There's so many elements to what happened in the Oval Office yesterday. So today, Carney will meet virtually with the premiers to debrief them on the more intricate discussions that went on behind closed doors after the Oval Office spectacle. That'll include John Hogan, of course, the new premier of this province. So we'll wait to see what comes of that. I'm sure Mr. Hogan will brief us, probably call a little briefing himself to give us the Cole's notes on the briefing that he gets from Carney. And interesting, too, on Mr. Hogan, I've seen a couple of scrums, including after the leadership result on Saturday, talking about fresh ideas. I'm all open. I want to hear the fresh ideas. I mean, we do have a minister that's been part of the government now for some time. If there were fresh ideas to be had, that would any time would have been a great time to throw those out there in the current administration last year, the year before. So we can safely assume he must have proposed them or tried them before, either adopted or not by the Premier Ferry. Otherwise, was he saving them for now or for what? So we can chew on that as well. There's a ton of other stuff going on. Dave, what are we going to do? What time is it? 9:11. Want to take a quick break and get to a caller? All right. I'm not going to do. I think the last time we hosted, I totally destroyed the breaks here and threw us all off kilter. So I'm going to abide by Dave's orders to say today on Open Line. I am Brian Callahan in for Paddy. Let's see, we're going to take a quick break. The number's call 1-888-590-VOCM, 709-273-5211. I'm here all morning. Right back in a minute. Welcome back to the show. Let's just go right to the lines. Line number 1, Gary, you're on the air.
Hello?
Good morning, Gary. We're on the air.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Brian. Nice to hear your voice. I listened to Paddy Daly show yesterday, and there was a lot of talk about separation from Labrador, and the person that called in, that spurred me on to make the phone call, because I'm really upset, because it's not just Labrador that wants to separate from England from Newfoundland, because they're being mistreated. That's the way they feel. And to me, I listen to that person. I think that person is absolutely right, that they are being mistreated by not just, they're being mistreated from all angles. And and then you look at Alberta, the situation there, they're talking separating there. And I thought, holy mackerel, what's going on in the country? It's falling apart. It's crumbling. And to me, sometimes we have to go back into history and see what exactly is going on. You're probably not old enough to remember when Charles de Gaulle came to Canada, Vive la Quebec, Libre. I mean, he wanted Quebec to separate. Well, you know what? The problem is there's one common denominator in the whole thing that wants the whole pie, and that's Quebec. They want everything. They want the cake, the pudding, the pie, the whole thing, and their way or no way. And so as far as I'm concerned, and I hope they're listening out in Alberta and in Labrador, don't separate. What the problem is in Quebec. They're the big problem in this country. And to me, you know, you have to go all the way back into history, right down to maybe where the House of Commons was built on, because that was the big battle there between the French and the English. And the French haven't given up. They want everything. As far as I'm concerned, what makes them think they're better than the rest of us? You know, it's so. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. Oh boy.
No way. That's what this program's all about. You rant away, Gary. By the way, I will say, you said I might not be old enough to remember Charles de Gaulle in Quebec. By 1 month, I wasn't old enough. He arrived, I think it was in July of '67. I was born in August. I would say so a month later, so I just missed it, but I probably wouldn't remember it much anyway. But
it's one of those things you don't forget. It's like I remember where I was when John F. Kennedy got shot, when Robert Kennedy got shot, when Martin Luther King got shot. I remember 9/11. I mean, you know, oh man, we need calmer heads in this country, and we need to put, you know, if we want everybody to be treated equal, well, I agree with everybody needs to be treated equal. That means Quebec, you get an equalization. You know, I think that's part of the problem. There is, I think, the notwithstanding clause is put in place by the premiers at some time in history to protect the provinces from the federal government for running roughshod over everybody and making sure everybody got a chance to, like, sort of like a beetle. You can't do that. we can't, one province can't have everything.
No, but some of us, there are a couple that do want it all. Gary, I would say this. I wish obviously I was tied up completely down in the courts yesterday, so I didn't hear the program, had no way of listening to it. But so I hope I don't repeat. Well, I'm sure we'll repeat some of the issues, and so be it. But I will say this: the timing of the Alberta Premier, sort of going down this road, Daniel Smith, with the potential for a referendum on separation. The timing is so curious. I mean, of all things, do we need to have that? I can appreciate it. Every province has their individual concerns, and they've, they haven't gone away, and they're cyclical. They come back around. You look at the Quebec referendums we've been dragged into over the years, for their want of more of a piece of the pie. It seems rather curious, and I would even argue selfish at this point, when we're all trying to, in the backdrop of trying to, reinforce Canada's sovereignty and togetherness as a country, coming together, all elbows up and all hands on deck, and you name it, whatever metaphor you want. And along comes this kind of talk in the middle of it. It just seems completely counterintuitive. I can appreciate the issues that Alberta has, and I've read and I've listened, and they're not frivolous. But the timing, really, is that the best way to approach it right now? I'm not there, and I welcome anyone on the ground in Alberta. Give me another context and perspective to this. If they think I'm out.
I'd love to have somebody phone from Alberta. Let's hear from Alberta. We've got lots of people that moved.
We certainly do.
Alberta from here. Phone us. Phone the line here. We need to hear from you. We need to know what they're actually feeling in Alberta. Not just the politician's point of view, the people's point of view.
Yeah, and it's just coming from, and I won't say uneducated, but an uninformed, and you're not on the ground. Maybe we can't appreciate it. I welcome being informed, but the bigger picture to me seems like the more important picture at this point, and that is, some kind of, show of unity across the country instead of, let's bring out the talk of separation for Alberta now, because it's just, I just don't get it. The timing, as Bill Rowe would say, I'm flummoxed.
Can I make one more point, Brian?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Can I make one more point?
Sure.
Canada is so full of resources that, we could be totally self-sufficient. We don't need to trade with the States right now when Trump's in there. We don't need to trade with nobody right now. We can produce all our stuff here, right in Canada, be totally self-sufficient if we just open up our own provincial borders and work together as Canadians. We're Canadians first, but that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, well, it's a common sense approach, Gary, and God knows, I'm not going to repeat it, but you know what they say about common sense. But it really plays right into the Trump playbook at this point. He's looking for any signs of weaknesses. If he can point to something and say, look, this province with rich, in the ground resources and other, they could start pointing to fractures, and I'm sure they'd pull out the Quebec hand. And sorry.
That's what he wants. Is like he's talking so much the 51st state. Well, that's what he wants. He wants to take Canada. And then I heard about Greenland and what's the other place? Some other.
Well, the Gulf of Mexico issue.
Yeah.
Or the Gulf of America issue, I guess. You can't. If you say Gulf, you got to say Gulf of America, or else you don't get in the White House.
Yeah, the holy mackerel.
But there's just so many pieces to it, and again, it's a playbook. I love, when Trump starts talking about. I thought we had a little more insight into his thinking last night. In effect, it was more theoretical about when he started talking, and it was right into Carney's hands because Carney had the line "not for sale" ready to go. But when Trump started talking about the beautiful real estate in Canada and the artificial line that artificially called it, this kind of stuff, it just kind of gave you an insight. And he never even really big pushback when Carney said the never, not for sale. It was more like, yeah, we'll see. You never say never. But he also said two to tango, which does suggest that it wouldn't be a forced sort of economic. I mean, it sounds like it wouldn't be forced. It sounds like it would have to be somehow mutual. And when you have fractures in the country, that can lead down to more of an open discussion about that kind of stuff, and no one wants it. Not that I know. If you show me a Canadian who wants to start talking like that and drinking the Kool-Aid, and I'll have that discussion, and we can remind them of who we are and where we're from.
Well, you know what? I was born and raised in Calgary, so Alberta is my home province to begin with. And I moved here and when I got here, I got to love Newfoundland too. So I adopted Newfoundland as my home now. So, you know, it's sort of like, but I still love Alberta. I mean, you don't lose your roots.
Right. I mean, you know, tell us about that here. You got that right. Gary, anything else you'd like to say just before we wrap it up?
Oh yeah, one more thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs fans. Just remember, it's a 7-game series, so don't go having a parade yet.
Look, they were planning a parade last Thursday night downtown Toronto. There were 2 guys with a map walking around saying down this one, up that one, and it might have been tongue in cheek. Yeah. It might have been tongue in cheek, might not though. That's Leafs fans for you.
I remember the Maple Leafs. I watched that game when they won the Stanley Cup in 1967. We were so excited. My older brother, myself, and my cousin Rick, and that we were at our cousin Connie's place. We jumped up and we came back down, sat on the chair, and we broke the laces of Chesterfield.
Oh man, those memories.
My cousin, he didn't like that. They just won the Stanley Cup.
And little did they know it would have to be more than 50 years later before they'd see another one.
Yeah.
Or I'll say 50 years later. Let's getting on 50.
There's still 3 Canadian teams in here, so I cheer for all the Canadian teams. 50. I want the Cup to come back to Canada.
Well, we'd all like that too. Although, you know, I mean, you can't even let your mind, unless you're a Leafs fan, you don't even want to let your mind go to what kind of mayhem could ensue.
Well, we could have all Canadian Stanley Cup final.
That would be a lovely show of sovereignty.
Like I think it works out. It could be any 2 of the 3 that are still there. It could end up being an all Canadian final. Wouldn't that be? And then we know the Cups come back to Canada.
Who do you like, Gary? You got any predictions?
Oh, I'm just cheering for all the Canadian teams right now. I hope they do the best they can, go as far as they can. That's all I do. And I don't want no teams from the States. I don't want the States to win the Cup.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you know, in the States, I mean, you know, as we all know, most of the players on every team are Canadian. So, you know.
Yeah, but it's just, I want it to come back the actual into a city. I think there's more symbolization there than you know. I know there's a lot of Canadians on all the teams, but I just want to come back into Canada where it should be anyways. That's Lord Stanley's Cup. It's not Lord Trump's Cup.
Yeah, and there are so many, you know, it would be symbolic on so many levels and so timely as well. You know, if we could reclaim it and take it back and have all those claims to go with it, you know, while we're waving the flag so fast and hard right now.
I think that'd be wondrous for the whole country. There'd be such a celebration of Canada finally getting the Stanley Cup back in the Canada. It's been a long time since we had the Cup. I think the last team that won the Cup for Canada was Montreal Canadiens.
That's right, 93.
Yeah, and so that's I want to see one more time come into Canada. So, you know, that's my wish for this year.
Yeah, and my wish is that the Habs do it. Of course, it won't be this year, but boy, they look some good. They're ready. They're poised. They're ready to go.
Yeah, you know, on the Maple Leafs, that Michael Nylander, wow.
Yeah, and you know, he's been stepping up at the right times. I think they're all starting to find getting through that first series. I think was the, you know, I won't say that.
Yeah, they had that was a great series. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, look, let's face it. If they had
more callers, so I better let you go because I'm getting tired out here, and I'm on my back today because I got back today, so I'm getting tired out. So I better let you go and listen to the show, and you have many more callers.
Thanks, Gary, for the call. Go Habs.
No.
All right, thanks for the call, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
Take
bye.
care. All right, bye. All right, Dave, right on the break. Let's take a quick break, come back, get right back to the program. Welcome back to the program. Let's go right to line 3. And John, you're on the air. Morning, John.
Good morning. I was wondering about the carbon rebates.
Right.
Are they continuing, or are they finished now for good?
No, my brain. My understanding is the final payment. I think they stopped it in mid-March. So the final payment would have been started to be issued in late April. I think the 22nd rings a bell. So if you filed your income tax by early April, you'd get that payment that month. If you file after that, I think you receive the final payment once the 2024 return for last year is assessed and done. But my understanding, the very last payment went out in April, and that's it. There is something called the rural something recovery. So I saw a note the other day that talked about some people got something called a rural supplement recovery that was also part of the carbon rebate, and I think they're clawing that back. So once again, errors by CRA. It doesn't matter who made the error; they're calling it back. So keep an eye out for that. It's called rural supplement recovery. That's the one that they're going to call back. But no, the final payment. There'll be no further quarterly carbon rebate payments after the April payment. She's done.
So there's nothing else besides that?
No, other than unless you count the supposed cut break we're going to all get in various ways at the pumps. But the talk is that this will go back into an industrial way that'll come back to hit us in the back of the head anyway. So without going down the road of that and how that might, it's a lot of speculation, and there's a lot of suggestions and questions about how it will be tied back into a recovery system for carbon. But right now it seems more industrial than it would be hitting us in the pocketbook at the pumps, which was the idea. Nobody liked it. Everybody questioned it. Were we ahead of our time? Was the federal government ahead of their time in trying to get out ahead of this? And, too soon, too fast, and on and on and on it goes. But the payments are done. That was a commitment made by the current Prime Minister. Whether or not that comes around another way, and I know there are people out there who say it will, we'll wait till they get back in Parliament and see what happens there. But the beauty of a minority government is that, there does require some cooperation. So that's the fence I'm on. I'm not even a fence, really. That's the side I fall on, off the fence, which is, minority governments, say what you want. It does somewhat, some way, shape, or form, and this is closer to a majority than a tight minority. But you even hear Pierre Poilievre the other day. He's sort of, had an epiphany, it seems. He's become human, a lot more human than I think some of us would have known him, especially as journalists, because it's been very tight controls and very scripted and very careful what he says. But he certainly says he's willing to work and do what it takes at this point now to shore up the sovereignty and the show of force from Canada, give them what's going south of the border. So I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but just a little bit. But nope, that's it. That's it for those CCR payments. The carbon rebate payments have stopped as of April.
Yeah.
Hate to break it.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Sorry the long answer, but there's a little conceptualization of it and capsulation of it. Thanks for the call.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Let's see, Dave, go on in line number 2. Take Mike Morrison. Mike, you're on the air.
Hi, how's it going, Brian?
Good, Mike. Thanks very much. How's your legs?
Oh, they're pretty strong. Yeah. I'm about to do a walk across Canada to raise awareness for mental health and depression.
All over it. The fresh air, just for the starters. And where are you starting from and where are you ending?
I'm going to be starting from Kitchener in southern Ontario. And I'm going to be walking. I'm going to do a loop around Ontario and come back through the East Coast.
And when do you get going?
I'm going to be starting that on the 15th of May. And, my whole life I've struggled with bipolar disorder, and I'm about to turn my struggle into mental fuel to fuel my dreams and goals.
Well, the exercise and the fresh air can't be underestimated for that sort of thing. And to find a goal that you want to accomplish for this sort of struggle, Mike, which we all know many who are having it. What brought you to this decision to make it to do this? I mean, look, walks and cross country endeavors are many for various different causes. The most famous might be, of course, Terry Fox, but you know, and it's not a new endeavor. But what brought you to it?
Well, for my whole life, I've always been told by my father, whatever's bugging me, to get off my pity pony and walk it off. So what I've done is I've taken a pony cart and I've turned it into a mini rickshaw camper, and I'm about to walk off all my pains and sadness and try to raise awareness that, you know, a lot of our depression is self-caused.
How do you mean that? Like, what would you say? I know it. I kind of have an idea what you mean, but why don't you just explain a little bit more about that?
Well, from my point of view, and this is just my thoughts, I've struggled with depression my whole life, and you know, a lot of it I was told by, some may not agree with me, but I was told by doctors and everybody that I need to struggle with my mental health, that every day has to be a struggle. And I get not every day is sunshine and rainbows, but that's the way life goes, right? And I just looking for different ways to deal with depression, with my mental health, and I found physical work, physical struggling to help me deal with everything that ails me in my head. I've been off medications for about, say, a good 15 years, and I've found martial arts, which helped me get through a lot of my anxieties and get rid of a lot of my depressions.
Mike, it's interesting if you were listening, and I did catch this part of the show yesterday on my way back to the office. You know, a lot of talk about prescriptions. You just said you've been off them for 15 years. That, to me, is one of the greatest hurdles, if you can. Maybe there are those. I mean, we all know every single person is different. Every metabolism is different. Something's going to work for you that's not going to work for the guy next to you or girl next to you.
I agree.
We have to find our own path, whether it's a walking path, as you have, across the country and around Ontario and back this way, or stamina, and whether or not you can mind over matter it, you know, as they say.
Yes.
You know, people say, oh, you know, strengthen up by, you got to be stronger of mind. Well, that's easy for some people, but there is a level of intervention, whether it be prescription or professional or mental health or counseling or even hospitalization, that is required for some people. We know, you know, schizophrenia is not bipolar, and bipolar is not depression, and anxiety is not bipolar. You know, they're not interchangeable, and everybody deals with them differently, and they see it differently. Can't get in anyone's head. I can't get in your head to know if, you know, to what level, you know, what stress level out of a scale of 10, say, it can be at its worst for you. But I do know that there are people who have managed, as you have, without prescription, and I think that's a good thing. I think prescription is almost like a, you know, something fly in the ointment sometimes. And I know there are people out there on prescription now that are, and they have to be, in order to stabilize. So I'm not speaking in any professional capacity. We have experts and in the field that are there to decide when is right and for what medication. But the plethora of it and the advertising for it and all the commercialization of it, you know, can send people down that road when they may not have needed it in the first place. And you might get a temporary fix out of it. There might be, you know, the endorphins or some kind of energy and clearness that you might see. But it has to be monitored, and it has to be looked after over a period of time to decide whether or not that is actually working for you, or again, whether it's mind over matter. It's a tough thing. Depression, I know too many people, and I mean everybody. Yeah. You know, when we label these terms, depression or anxiety. You know, depressed was not a scary word when I was growing up. Oh, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling well. Right. You know, when we labelize it with anxiety, now, I mean, you hear teenagers using the word anxiety. I just find that completely unusual, that they just throw the word out there because they're hearing it in set settings, such as schools or elsewhere, and it's become a concerning word. You know, oh, I have anxiety. Well, I have anxiety about a test. You might have anxiety about this, that, and the other thing, but whether or not you're actually diagnosed with an affliction that affects every day of your life is another question, and that's when intervention's required. So I'm sorry, I'm on tangents this morning, Mike, but feel free to,
That's okay. I agree with everything you just said, because a lot of times people mistake feelings and emotions for depression.
Absolutely.
A lot of times people feel sad and they automatically say, hey, I'm depressed, because they're a little sad or a little angry with somebody, so they turn it into depression in their own minds. And what I'm doing, I've created a YouTube channel so I could spread the word that not every feeling has to do with depression. Not every bit of sadness has to bring depression into your life and into your vocabulary. Because a lot of what we struggle with is what we tell ourselves.
Absolutely, and people become self-concerned to a point where they're not. I mean, it's fair to say that some people aren't sure whether or not they have an issue that needs professional attention or whether or not they can handle it themselves. That's just a fact. The self-awareness side of this is crucial. If you're not sure, and you really can't see outside yourself and how you're being perceived, say, by others, if you don't have an awareness of how you're being perceived in everyday life, then you probably can't, you're probably sticking out, or maybe you're feeling more uncomfortable than you should. But too many people run to the pill bottle as opposed to just run, or get some fresh air and get clear your head. Sorry.
Yes, my opinion on a lot of medications, they're just Band-Aids. They're just a quick fix to what's bugging you. You know what I mean? What the deep-rooted problem is.
Yeah, and I think it could even be called, and again, I'm not tearing everybody. We always have to be careful around these conversations. Very sensitive topics.
True enough.
But you're not. I find it sometimes the lazy way to deal with this, if it's just taking medication as opposed to really sitting down and finding healthy ways, whether it's your diet, whether it's your sleeping patterns, whether it's your smoking patterns, whether it's your drinking habits, all of those things contribute as well. And, you could just make an effort to cut out how much you're drinking or smoking, and that could make a difference. But you got to try those other natural solutions before you go down the road of meds, because we know what meds do. We don't have to look far, and the more you take them, and some people are more susceptible to addiction. So that can be a slippery slope. My mantra has always been, if you can do it without any of that stuff and try all the other avenues first, the healthy ones, you might have some success there, and it could even temper the number of prescriptions or any kind of prescription that you are taking.
Yes, I totally agree with what you just said. That's perfect.
So, Mike, one more wrap-up before we get to a break here. When do you have a start date, and when will you be around these parts?
Well, I'm starting on the 15th, and I'm hoping on the 15th of May, and I'm hoping to be around the East Coast around, I'd say around August, September.
Okay, so we'll be looking for, I don't know if I'll be here at the time, but as you get closer, you'll have to give us a shout, and we'll have to come meet up with you and congratulate you on the accomplishment, to say the least. Hopefully the weather's nice.
Yes, thank you so much for accepting my call and listening to me.
No problem, Mike. Just one more time, the YouTube channel you mentioned. How can people keep an eye?
Well, my YouTube channel is called Dancing Shaman at Canadian-Walkabout on YouTube. Got it.
Okay, and we'll have that information here too. We can look that up. Anyone wants to try to didn't get that at the first crack.
It's just a small channel. I got small subscribers. I'm just trying to spread the word of healing to everybody who wants to watch or come on my journey. I'll be vlogging the whole thing.
Well, the more people that do, I mean, it may be, as you said, a small thing, but the more people that do small things, the bigger they become. So, good on you.
That's right.
Okay, Mike, thanks again. Safe travels, and hope to see you soon later in the fall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
See you all later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, Dave, quick break, and back with Christine Ennis with St. John's Rotary. Come back to the show. Let's go right to line number one, and Christina Ennis with St. John's East Rotary. You're on the air.
Good Good morning. Thanks so much for having me on.
No worries. Thanks for calling. Got a couple of events going on.
Yeah, so I feel like this is an annual occurrence now with me calling in to Open Line to talk about fly fishing, which isn't my normal topic of conversation. But Rotary St. John's East, we've been around for about 30 years now, and this is our 7th annual International Fly Fishing Film Festival. So we call it IF4 for short, because there are 4 F's in the title of the event. Mm-hmm. And these film viewings happen all across the country, all around the world, really. So it's not just us here at St. John's East who are showing these films. So it's taking place on Thursday, May 8th at 6 o'clock p.m. Doors are opening at the Bruno Center at Memorial University, and tickets are pretty affordable at $27. We don't have a ton of tickets left, which is good news for us, bad news for the public. So if you do want to go check it out, I would recommend people do that ASAP. But one of the cool things that we have incorporated this year is that we have award-winning chef and author hosting Lori McCarthy. She's also a member of our club, so if you're a fan of Lori, you're definitely going to want to check it out. And we also have live fly tying demonstrations happening during the first hour before the film start. And then there's actually 7 short films that are going to be shown over the course of about 2.5 hours.
Christina, do you fish?
I used my poppy used to take me fishing when I was little, and I haven't been fishing in a very long time. I think the last time I might have been fishing was when the Scademia was still on the go, the tour boat downtown, if anybody remembers it, and I remember going cod jigging during the food fishery one summer. But it's something that I've seen a number of my peers, so people in their 30s, early 40s, kind of getting into fly fishing the last couple of years. Feels very relaxing, a great wellness activity. But no, I have not personally been fishing. But I'd love to.
Interesting you mentioned the Scademia. I took more than a few runs on that with some friends. But I've been known to give her a flick every now and then. Growing up, it was a spinner too. I mean, I started with the spinner, so you're flicking that as far as you can as a competition. But the fly fishing is definitely more therapeutic and laid back, and there's an art and a skill to it. My father, my family, my brothers, just passionate. That is the gravy, we used to do it off the little clearing near our cabin, and I remember, sadly, I stayed with fly fishing more than a spinner because I caught a spinner right and square in my back, all 3 prongs of it when I was 10 years old. So,
oh
yeah, and off to the Whitburn Clinic we went, and still got the scar to show for it. But after that, I only used a spinner, or I only used a fly, because I just couldn't get past the nightmare of getting that thing hooked in my back and being rushed off to the clinic to get it out. Oh, my God. But anyway, that's off on a tangent. So the where's and the wins again. So this is the 7th annual Fly Fishing Film Festival at you said the Bruno Center, correct?
Yep, so it's happening at MUN at the Bruno Center. Some people might know it as the Inco building. It is called the Bruno Center, so kind of next to the library there. Tickets are $27. We do have a website, so it's IF4 for the number, stjohns.ca, and you can buy tickets right on there. And all of the proceeds from this event, we're a fully volunteer-run organization. We do not have any staff, and we work with a number of organizations in the community, locally and internationally. But locally, we've really been focused on helping with acute needs of people who are experiencing poverty for whatever reason. We support a number of schools in the community in the St. John's area, an elementary school and a junior high. Those 2 schools have a lot of new Canadian families and also support a number of areas that might need a little bit more of a hand up sometimes than other neighborhoods in the city. So helping new Canadian families with things and acute needs kind of is our focus right now. And on that note, if anybody does want to get involved in anything and help with the community, might want to meet new friends. It's difficult to meet new friends sometimes as an adult, and Rotary is an excellent place to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Bruno Center. people of my vintage would probably better know it as the TSC, although she doesn't look anything like the Thompson Student Centre now, I can tell you that. And you also mentioned Laurie McCarthy, chef, is going to be there. That's an interesting angle to it. So is she going to be cooking up scoffs or just...
No. She's not going to be cooking, but she is actually a member of our club, right. And Lori is one of the best storytellers I think I've ever met. She is going to be, I guess, guiding us through the evening as we go from film to film, telling a little bit about Rotary and how we kind of came to be doing this event, which stemmed from passion of club members who heard about this opportunity, and nobody in Newfoundland was showing these films yet, and kind of telling some stories about how we can kind of do good in the community and the connection to the outdoors and the benefits that Lori's found that she's now sharing with the world through books and some of her programming that she does for foraging. She had a TV show come out recently. I believe it was on the Bell. Their local network, can't remember what it's called. Yes, Lori will be there. Unfortunately, she will not be cooking, but I'm sure she'll have information about where you can learn more about where Lori will be cooking.
Yeah, Christina, I tell you, we were just talking just before your call, about mental health and things that can be naturally good for your mental health. Oh my God, fly fishing and storytelling. The cinematography alone, just from the films, I can, if you want to chill and just relax and clear the brain a bit, I'd say this is the place for you tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the Bruno Centre. Christina Ennis with St. John's East Rotary, thanks so much for the call, and good luck tomorrow night.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the sunshine.
Oh, thank you. I echo that. All right, yeah. Dave, let's cut her off right on time to the news. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly, 1-888-590-VOCM, that's 8626, or locally 709-273-5211. We'll be back after the news. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line 2 and Connie Pike with Miles for Smiles. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Brian. How are you doing?
Good morning. Not too bad, I guess, for the middle of the week.
That's good. Good to hear. Nice sunny day.
That makes all the difference, Connie. I have to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm sure it does for a lot of people.
It sure does. And I listened with interest to your last call there, talking about mental health and the things that are good for mental health. And, of course, today would be a great day for everyone to take advantage of the natural vitamin D. Mm-hmm. Brian, I wanted to call in, as I do every month, to let you know the child abuse court numbers that we're seeing. And for April, this would be, I call in early each month to report on the past month in case something gets added last minute. Anyway, for April month, we were looking at a total of 352 cases involving some type of child abuse, and 76 people were charged with those 352 offenses, and that does not include Tony Humby's counts listed on the docket for April, or Marcus Hicks. So I'll just leave that to one side because they equate to hundreds of charges in and of themselves. So 352 over 10 courtrooms and 76 people charged. And it's interesting because I was asked this week, Brian, about, somebody had said to me, you call in each month, don't you? And I said, yes. And they said, what types of offenses, are you talking about? And I had covered this with Patty quite a while ago. We've been doing this now since August of 2023, keeping these numbers. So it's certainly long enough to see a pattern and so on. We're averaging about 330 cases per month. So the types of things that we're looking at when we count these charges, and we literally count them, would be interference with a child, sexual assault, invitation to sexual touching, displaying sexually explicit material to a child, luring on a computer, exposing genital organs to a child under 16, unlawfully obtaining sex from a child, the distribution of child porn, possessing child porn, accessing child porn, making child porn. And I shouldn't be using the word porn. I really dislike that word because it somehow insinuates that there may have been some level of
me too.
Consensuality. So it's not. It's child abuse, child sexual abuse material. So I'll have to change that on my own information. And there's sexual exploitation, corrupting a child, supplying cannabis or liquor to a minor, forcible confinement, uttering threats to a child, bestiality in the presence of a child, failure to provide the necessities of life, assault with a weapon, abandoning a child, and incest. So these charges that I talk about each month, they definitely run the gamut. And, Brian, as a society, it's not just the children themselves, the victims, who pay a heavy, heavy price, but society pays a price as well. And when I think about the children, if they're victims, it could be literally a victim themselves, or they could witness it. But the effects are often the same, and it encompasses emotional, physical, sexual types of crimes. And then when these children are either victimized in this way or they witness it, and it varies, the reaction and the triggers, it varies from person to person. But the people who, are impacted most by this are at much higher risk for health problems when they become adults. And these health problems, as I outline the charges running the gamut, so do the issues for young children and when they become adults themselves. So the depression and the anxiety, under the mental health umbrella, the poor self-esteem, poor self-image, and it goes right to physical kinds of issues, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and that, can last a lifetime, actually. Children often have difficulty in school. They abuse drugs and alcohol. They act aggressively when, they're bullying other children, and that's a whole other path I could go down. They often engage in criminal behavior when they're teens or as adults. And they have difficulty controlling their emotions, which, of course, in turn makes for making and maintaining any kind of relationships almost impossible, or at least very difficult. So there's a lot to consider. And according to a study that I read up on recently, October 16th, 2024, actually, it's not getting any better. As a matter of fact, the main threats to children have escalated. And, in our country, in Canada, I focus on the country, and it's really serious, and I don't think we're doing enough in terms of prevention, which is why I continue to work with Miles for Smiles, which is a community agency that works to prevent child abuse. And we can't emphasize enough, we keep saying it, about the prevention is so much more critical than the reactions we give, because oftentimes the reactions come too late. Patty and I often talked about the upriver effect, where we see people falling in the river, and years down the road we're fishing them out of the river with all kinds of issues. And not only has it cost them in terms of the human cost more, but it's costing society more than to look after them.
Connie,
so I'm not sure, why we're not investing in prevention.
It probably, well, it's truth be told, and I'm down in the thick of it every day. It's hard to keep up. It's just hard, from the lawyers to the investigators to the parents, trying to keep up on top of the apps that your kids are using, that anyone is using. And it's the number one way these days that they are lured. It's all about the grooming. It's all about the reaching out to just extend a friendly welcome. And the next thing you know, it's not who they say they are, i.e. allegations against Marcus Hicks. That's one side of it. But it's all about taking advantage and exploiting the youth inexperience and their vulnerabilities. And it's sickness, and it's selfishness, and it's taking away their youth. It's ripping and destroying the normal childhood of so many kids, who are just there trying to, grow up normally. And then you have this kind of intervention, which has really gone through the roof with the advent of the internet and web and apps and the dark web. And I don't need to tell you. And Connie, sadly, the numbers that you're giving us regularly and the work you're doing, I hope you're staying well yourself. The work, this deep, dark work, is not for the faint of heart, to say the least. And I know you have decades of experience in policing and with this kind of thing, but I wonder sometimes what chunk of your normal life this has taken out, because of the need for people like yourself and organizations like Miles for Smiles. And you also mentioned the 10 courtrooms that you look for. Are you just speaking about the courtrooms at Atlantic Place and Supreme Court here in St. John's?
No. I'm talking about the 10 provincial courts. There are a lot of courtrooms in St. John's.
Yeah, in every location,
I count all the numbers cumulatively. So we're looking at Clarenville, Corner Brook, Gander, Grand Bank, Grand Falls, Windsor, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Harbor Grace, Stephenville, Wallbush, and St. John's.
Yeah.
And Brian, everything that you summed up there in those few seconds, you really hit the nail on the head. And I always worry about caregivers. I know myself, I've had many sleepless nights, and I know many people in that category. And it's not easy work. And it's hard to look at these numbers and say, what is happening in our little province? But one of the most disturbing parts of that is you have to think about those numbers that I've given you, 352 cases in a month. Well, I can assure you a very small percentage of what happens makes it to court, because only 10% of cases ever get reported. So that's 90% left unsaid, left unseen, left unheard.
And you stole the next line from me. That's just what's on the docket, not what's occurring at this moment or about to occur or will occur.
The numbers, out of the low numbers, out of that 10% that actually get reported, only about 3% make it to court. Yeah. So you can, 10 times, 12 times, 15 times that number I gave you. And it's not a healthy picture for our province. And, we keep beating this drum about prevention. And I know it worked with impaired driving. We had Don't Drink and Drive and Designated Driver, that 2-part campaign that the government poured a lot of money into. They invested in that because they were seeing the actual cost to society. And oftentimes with this type of crime, with impaired driving, for instance, the insurance companies put pressure on government because, there were so many claims, there were so many accidents, there were so many people ending up in hospitals, etc. But with this type of crime that I'm referring to, the damage is often so hidden. Some people never speak of it. I've had 80-year-old people who were abused and had never told anyone. So, like this kind of thing, we really have to take it seriously. We have to do better. In my opinion, we have to do better, because in the year and a half that we've been keeping these numbers, I can assure you that these numbers have pretty much been the standard for decades.
Yeah,
And the numbers,
standard and not getting any better.
yeah, and the numbers are not going down. That's a scary reality, Brian. So, if the numbers are not going down, that tells us there's something we're not doing, or it should tell us.
There's also
things we are not doing.
Yeah, and Connie, only because I'm right up to the break here, I would just say that, the police do their best to, the idea is here they want them to come forward. So in some ways, the fact that there are charges on the docket suggests that there is work being done to try to stem it as best they can, despite the flood of it. So in some ways, I'm not saying it's a good thing that it's on the docket, but better that they are on the docket than hidden and not being brought to the fore, whatever percentage that is. Connie, thank you for the call. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okie doke, Dave. It's a tough one. Let's take a break and come right back. Welcome back to Open Line. Let's go right to line one. Going to talk to Mayor Danny Breen in a minute, but let's go to line one. And Jennifer, you're on the air.
Hello.
Good morning, Jennifer. Sorry about the wait.
That's okay. I'd just like to say I'm a little bit more calm right now, but I'm a little upset about your conversation around mental health and the possible remedies that could be offered. I'd just like to give a little bit of background and say that I'm a huge supporter of mental illness. I kind of like to think of myself as an advocate, speaking up for people who have no voice or who can't speak for themselves. I have a lot of experience with family members who have suffered and continue to suffer in a system that has failed us. And some of the comments, and I'm a little upset because I feel like in this day and age, we are kind of moving backward a little in some of the comments that I heard you say to the last caller. And that was about how, anxiety is an overused term. Children are using that term. You hear children using that term. And for me, that's more concerning than just a fad. To me, that's children reaching out for help. I am 49 years old. I come from a generation where we also said, I have depression or I'm anxious. And we kind of moved on from that. But it's because we didn't know what the impact of mental illness many years ago was, and we didn't know how to reach out for help. So my concern is making comments about natural remedies, for instance, which are great, and the sunshine is great. It puts us all in a good mood, but it goes deeper than that because mental illness is not about your mood. It has nothing to do with mood. It's a disease. It's an illness, and unfortunately, people are suffering. And comments like that, I think, are very damaging. I have seen firsthand how serious anxiety can be. And it's not just about overthinking, about going, having a cup of tea and taking a walk. And those comments, unfortunately, can really discourage people from getting help. And I just wanted to reach out to you. And I know you said it was a sensitive topic, but it's extremely important that we look at medication as not being a Band-Aid, and that medication is sometimes the difference between life and death. I don't think anybody would tell somebody with a back injury or somebody who's dying of cancer to go take a walk and, you'll feel better. They would offer them any source of medication or help that they could get to ease that pain. And the pain of mental illness, unfortunately, is no different.
Absolutely. Jennifer, I'm not sure where we disagree here. I made it abundantly clear that in no way, shape, or form was any one solution good for one person and good as the next. There are extreme versions of and episodes of mental illness that cannot be cleared with a walk in the park. I will be the first to admit that. And yes, I did. You did say that I was sensitive. I was beyond sensitive. We were careful to say, or at least, I tried to keep it on that track. I mean, you know as well as I do, this discussion is not for the faint and is not an easy discussion to have. And I actually, I'm very wary of it, of who could be listening and who it may absolutely not apply to. So I take all your comments very, very, professionally and honestly and openly and accurately. What you're saying is absolutely true. There are medications that work, and I said that. There are not medications that work for some people, and some people abuse the medications, and it can go down the road of addictions. And certainly, the vitamin D, even like Christine Ennis had mentioned from Rotary, just saying that, it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but it can help. And I am not here to diagnose anybody today. I know better than most people because, I kind of grew up right next door to the Waterford Hospital. I know the variations, the extremes, the less extremes. It can run the gamut, and no one can look at anyone and say what they have or what they don't have. And what works for one person does not work for the next person. No, there's no attempt here to simplify it or to downplay it or to go backwards, as you said. We need to have this discussion. I think, Jennifer, you would agree. And let's at least start the discussion and not be afraid to talk about these things and all aspects of it, because that's when we go backward.
I agree, and I respect your opinion. I do recall what upset me the most was, before turning to medication, we should look at natural remedies. And unfortunately, that is very damaging to people, because I can tell you, as a family member of people who suffer, the very first question that comes to that person's mind is, what is wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Why can't I use a natural remedy? Why can't going for a walk help me relieve me of what's going on? And the answer is, it's because it's a disease, it's an illness. It's not something that can be talked away or something that can be, walked away. And so I just find that, that's not what people want to hear. What people with mental illness want to hear is, listen, we are here, we are listening, and our government is failing you. And the reason why our children are riddled with anxiety and depression is not because of devices. I'm sure that contributes in some way, yes. But it's because there's something bigger going on, and we're not getting to the root of the problem. And I was at the new mental health hospital this weekend and visited somebody there, and it's clear to see it's a beautiful place, and the people there are beautiful. But there's so much more work that needs to be done, and oftentimes I've just heard that damaging comment. Go for a walk, get outdoors, get exercise, eat well. People who are in the depths of mental illness can't even get themselves out of bed, let alone think about eating well or sleeping well or doing those things. And what we need to do is help people to reach out for help. And unfortunately, I've seen that those comments can be damaging and can prevent people from reaching out.
I totally understand what.
Make that point.
Yeah, no.
I wanted to make that point.
Absolutely, and you should make that point, because you know what? Maybe I didn't make it clear enough. But let's be clear again. There is no fix for any one person. There are natural afflictions from birth. Absolutely. The problem is when you have this conversation, it has to be an off the cuff. This is my gut feeling, and words matter, and people are going to seize on words, especially around the conversation around mental health. But I take everything you're saying is accurate. It's just adding to the conversation that we just had. No, a walk in the park is not going to help somebody who struggles to get out of bed. That is a different situation. There has to be, we did talk about self-awareness, and at what point do you feel that you are not well and you do need some kind of professional intervention? Whether or not the government is, properly staffing up and doing work to, fill the resources that we need to properly address this issue beyond a brand new building is another conversation. But let's face it, everybody has different levels of struggles, right, with their mind. Whether it enters into an affliction and something you need help for, that's best for a diagnosis for a doctor. As I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to make diagnosis here. But I want people to understand that it can run the extreme. And some people are on the fence and unsure. They may not be in the depths of it, as some people are, sadly. But other people wake up every morning and wonder why they're feeling a little off, and whether or not it goes down the road of an illness, or whether it's just something that they need to change in their daily habits. I think that's a safe conversation to have. And I'm not trying to I'll be the last one to try to downplay the effects of mental illness on our society today, and the way we can address it. There is, obviously, if it could be addressed and fixed, it would have been done by now. But the conversation is the starting point, and your calls like this are massive toward it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate your response. I'd just like to say, because I know so many people are out there suffering, that it's okay to be where you're to. It's okay to reach out. It's not your fault. It is an illness, and it should be recognized as such. And being on medication, whether it's a Band-Aid or not, we wouldn't go to the hospital with a broken arm and not expect a cast. It's just a part of the healing process. It may not be something you need to be on for the rest of your life, but it could save your life right now. And I hear you. I'm listening to people with mental illness. I know there's a big problem, and I just wanted to confront it right now for those people who, in that moment, may have felt as passionate as I did listening to your conversation, and just to say to reach out and speak for those people. That was just my point today.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what we're here for. We're not going to fill every gap with every call, and you following up with this, again, I will say it again, it keeps the conversation going. Everything I say isn't to be all and end all, God knows. But we need this this is what the show is for, Jennifer. This is exactly what we need. We started the conversation, and I think we can all agree we have to keep the conversation going. It will eventually lead to fixes. Maybe baby steps. We know we're way behind, and we got to catch up. But the conversation is the starting point, and your information is the trigger for that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Dave, let's run on the break. When we come back, Mayor Danny Breen, right after the break. And welcome back to the program. Let's go right to line number 3 and welcome St. John's Mayor and actor Danny Breen to the line. Good morning, Mayor. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Fine. You got that Academy Award nomination in the mail yet, or how do they deliver those anyway?
I don't think I'll be finding out how they get delivered.
I don't know. I thought that performance, your ads for the Canada Games seemed to be just taking everybody by storm. I thought, how did that go?
Well, we had a lot of fun doing this, and it's anything I can do to help out and to do things for the Canada Games Host Society or any group here in the city. I try my best, and we got together some of the volunteers, and we had a bit of fun, and we're getting closer and closer to our goal of 5,000 volunteers.
Yeah, you got a count on that, by the way. Just I know that just last week I think it was up over 4,000, but doesn't seem to be much really panic that they're not going to get there.
No, and but we do want to make sure that we get people in, get all their certifications and that done. That may be required, so that we're organized. So if you weren't want to volunteer, then certainly make sure you do it soon, so that we can be all organized and ready, and everybody ready to go.
Right on. Didn't want to miss an opportunity to plug Canada Games. She's going to be on wheels this summer. And speaking of this summer and on wheels, so the city yesterday removed some removed fees for what I guess the city calls the Parklet program. Now that kind of runs from May to October, but anywhere within that window, anyone in the city can put a parklet or a deck or a patio. A business can do this. But it depends on if it's on city land. It depends on if it's private land. And this is all geared, I guess, toward, it seems, to creating parity versus to them?
Yeah, so what we have is we have different ways in which people can have patios. So first of all, let's just talk about when we started the pedestrian mall in 2020. What we really started here was a new thing of outside eating decks on businesses. There was some around the city before that, but they really, since then, they've really become a big part of the city and a big part of our summer, particularly in the downtown area, the pedestrian mall, and outside the pedestrian mall footprint. So if you have a property and you have room on your property and you can put the deck in, then obviously there's no cost to the land because you own land. But in cases like on Water Street, on Duckworth Street, Churchill Park, for example, you may have to take over city land. And take over city land that you could use, you would have to pay a rent for that. The rent was based on the lost parking revenue. So what we did yesterday is we changed that from the lost parking revenue to an amount that we charge in similar situations right across the city for different things, which is $2.50 a square foot. So what that does is it reduces the cost to the people who are putting out the patios on city property, and it's a way to help the restaurants and to encourage more people to put these out. And, we've had feedback on it over the past couple of years, and as we do with all these things, we look at them, we reconsider, and we looked at this and came up with a different way to approach it.
So the numbers here, I know that it was almost a unanimous vote yesterday. I know that Councillor Ron Ellsworth said he reluctantly supported it, and I think Tom Davis voted against it, coming from the small business side of things or from the city side of things. They were kind of torn between losing the $90,000 in revenue that those parklets were recouping for you because of the lost revenue on parking spaces. But and also, there's been, as Ron Ellsworth mentioned, about $300,000 it costs the city to run the pedestrian mall. Can you see where they were coming from on that, and is that a big issue?
Well, everybody has an opinion, and certainly there are people that voted against this last evening. There was people that had concerns about it. It wasn't something that we just jumped into. We had a lot of discussion about it, and we were weighing out both sides of those equations. But I think when you look at the pedestrian mall in particular, and you look at the outside with people, we have a limited summer here in Newfoundland, and we want to be able to take advantage of that. We also wanted to be able to help out restaurants that are going through some difficult times, and by able to do this, we don't have many levers to do that financially, but this is one of the levers we do have. And one of the things that we did consider was, look, if we close the street, then we lose the parking revenue, but we lose the parking revenue anyway because the street's closed. So you're really then putting the cost of the pedestrian mall on a smaller number of businesses, only the ones that have the parklet out there. So you have all these discussions. There's no exact science to it. You just have to weigh everything out and see what's in the best interest as we move into the summer tourism season here.
You made the point on the pedestrian mall where, the street's closed anyway, so you're not losing parking revenue because there's no parking being there. When I was listening and watching this yesterday at the meeting, it just did occur to me for a second, and I should tell everybody, by the way, be prepared. Your emergency alerts are coming to the phone in the next few seconds. Just to startle some, it can startle you no matter what. And people will ask, now, this is a test, by the way, but there's a lot of issues around that we can discuss. I just want to be clear that when the pedestrian mall, say, for example, last year was closed, were the restaurants who had parklets in the areas where you couldn't park anyway, were they being charged those fees then?
Yes.
Wow. So I can. This seems like a no-brainer then. That this seems like a pretty, I think Ron Ellsworth said a goodwill gesture, but pretty, no-brainer then. Hey, in this case, should that have been happening in the first place if you weren't losing revenue anyway?
Well, we were losing revenue. So here's one of the.
Not on the backs of the restaurateurs. I mean.
Yeah, well, so look, there's a lost revenue of $90,000, which is what we would usually collect on those spaces. But if you think about it, if there was still people going to the downtown, maybe the parking on Harbour Drive was filled more often than it was up on Water Street. Maybe that the parking on the on other places just outside Duckworth and Water was heavier utilized. So it's hard to say that what happened with all that traffic. I think the bottom line is we were putting out a cost. We want to encourage people to put out these parklets, and we also want to be able to have a very robust pedestrian mall, especially this year. I mean, we have some major events here. So we just thought, in fairness, in taking the arguments that were put to us by the business owners and by organizations such as the Board of Trade, CFIB, the Restaurant Association, we had another look at it and we were able to come up with this solution.
I had a couple other mentions too, of course, on the blue zones all the time, just about needing more, and some people might say, well, these parklets might take up the decks might take up space. That could be more blue zones.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is another. We're now doing a review in terms of the 2026 pedestrian mall. It's our normal review, and I think that there is a need to identify more blue zone places on not where you have to come up the hill. from Harbours Road or into Coles. So that's something that our staff is working on.
And, just lastly, Mayor, you opined a little bit there on the changing political landscape. I can't let you go without letting you elaborate a little on that fascinating dynamic yesterday in the White House. And, of course, the election of, the new Prime Minister, the new Liberal government here, if people call it new, maybe a little old, as well as the provincial leadership and Premier John Hogan. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, first of all, the federal government's a very important part of what you see happening here in the city. A lot of the projects that we do without federal, provincial, and municipal cost sharing just wouldn't happen. If you look at the investments made for the Canada Games, that was a cost-shared program. If you look at wastewater treatment, we have to build a secondary wastewater treatment plant. We can't do that without the federal government. If you look at the money that put into housing, the multi-use trails that we've done. So this is very important that we have a government that we have to work with. We all have to work together, and so that collaboration is really important. Regards to the provincial government, John Hogan's has been a solid MHA for his district. We've worked together on many files, and I look forward to working with him. I think he's a very hardworking, thoughtful individual, and the work that he's done, we have to do that in concert because St. John's has some unique needs, and we have to address them as we move forward.
And one last thing, I was going to say, city's come a long way since being told you're not ambitious enough with housing stock and now exceeding expectations. How about that feel?
Well, I was interesting because they told us that we weren't being ambitious enough. And then when we put in a plan for $18 million, they came back and gave us $12 million. So I guess they wanted us to be more ambitious, but not quite that ambitious.
It's hard to find that sweet spot, eh?
So, I take it, but that half fund, the Housing Accelerator Fund, has been very important to the city. There's a lot of units being considered. I think we have about 2,100, 2,200 units in various stages of approval now. So it's been important to the city and to address the housing issue, because when it's all said and done, housing affordability in particular, it's got to be addressed with a change in the supply, because the demand is going up, and if your supply remains down, your housing costs are going to be up.
Mayor Breen, always appreciate time. Thanks for handling the extra few questions I threw in there. Always appreciate it.
Anytime at all. Thanks,
Great.
Brian.
Thanks. All right, Mayor Danny Breen. Let's well over the break there, Dave. Off to the break and back with Paul Lane. Welcome back to the program. Let's go right to line one. Paul Lane, independent MHA from Mount Pearl Southlands, and with COD NL, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I was going to say you're on the island for some reason. I don't know why, but I assume you're on the island. Are you on the island?
I am indeed.
There you go. Well, good for you, especially if you're having the sun split in front of you like it is here in VOCM Valley.
Beautiful here in Mount Pearl. Not a cloud in the sky, so it's just the way we like it. I just hope it's going to last.
Absolutely. I agree. What's on your mind, Paul?
So, I did
Pick
see
one.
a story. Well, yeah, there is.
Yeah, no
There's
kidding.
always lots on my mind. I saw a story on VOCM earlier this week, and it concerned, I believe it was Nancy Reid with COD NL, and I guess there was a concern expressed around the viability, from what I could read, the viability of that organization because of a lack of core funding from the provincial government that it requires to do the great work that it does. And obviously that has raised certainly concern with a lot of people, including myself. And, as Nancy indicated, I believe she said about 30% of our population actually has some form of a disability. And while some people might think that's high, I think what we have to realize, and the reality of it is that, yes, there are some people who are born, with various disabilities, but beyond that, where we have certainly an aging population, there's a lot of people later in life, because for most of us, all of us, I guess, on various degrees, the older you get, the higher the chance of different parts of your body breaking down, whether you run into heart issues, whether you run into stroke issues, whether you require knee and hip replacements, whatever the case might be. There's a lot of people that are impacted, certainly, when it comes to mobility issues, when it comes to access issues and so on. And of course, then there's also the inclusion issues for people with intellectual disabilities as well. So there are many people impacted, and therefore it's important that all those individuals have a voice, to be able to advocate for things that are required within our society, within our province, for people with various types of disabilities. And so and of course the provincial government, 4 years ago, one of the promises made by I was going to say this administration, well, I guess it's still this administration, but under Premier Fury at the time, it's now Premier Hogan. Congratulations, by the way. There was a commitment made that there was going to be a disability advocate office set up in the province. That commitment has not been kept, which is an issue unto itself. But beyond that, if we're not going to have the disability advocate, as was promised by government, at the very least, we need to ensure that, the primary organization, and I know there are a number of other organizations that are probably specific to various things, but the primary organization being COD-NL, which has been a great spokesperson for people with disabilities, to have them at risk of folding their tent because of a lack of core funding or a shortfall in core funding. To me, that's just very short-sighted. So I certainly want to call upon the government, to meet with Ms. Reid and her colleagues at COD-NL and to understand where the gaps are too and what kind of funding we're talking about.
Paul? And
certainly to work with them to ensure that they are able to continue the great work that they do, the very important work they do.
Paul, can I ask a favor? There's a couple,
Sure.
I want to explore this a little bit. I just don't want to give this short shrift. Right up to the clock here at the 11 o'clock news. Will you hang on and come back right after the news?
Not a problem.
Awesome. I'm going to put you on hold right there. And Dave, let's head off to the news with Sarah Strickland. We'll be right back after the news.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And back with Paul Lane, independent MHA from Mount Pearl Southlands. And Paul, thanks for holding. Let's continue right where you dropped off there, about, where we left off, I should say. Obviously, we're talking about COD-NL, the disability, the call for a disability advocate, which has been so far deflected. I do note that I mentioned off the top, the new Premier John Hogan, since he's taken office, of course, succeeding Premier Fury until an election anyway. He mentioned, they asked him, how will it be different? You are a cabinet minister from the previous government. If you had great ideas then, why not? One would assume that they were brought to the table at that point. But this seems like one that could land very easily in John Hogan's lap for a disability advocate, something that hasn't been done before. He's talked about fresh ideas, different ideas, moving, in different directions because he is a different premier. Is this his opportunity?
Well, absolutely. It's an opportunity to do the right thing, quite frankly. And, this is something that, as I said, that was promised 4 years ago. And it was actually in the minister responsible. I'm not exactly sure which minister that was off the top of my head. was in the mandate letter from the Premier to actually get it done, is my understanding, but it was never fulfilled. So, absolutely, if you're going to be making commitments, you should be keeping those commitments. But there's two things here. One is the disability advocate and keeping that commitment. But of course, the other thing, certainly in the absence of this disability advocate, we have an organization in CADNL that have done tremendous work, working with government, working with stakeholders to advocate for change and to actually be part of that change in terms of being the boots on the ground and in developing a lot of the policy and so on that government's put in place. It's been CADNL, and we cannot let that organization fold their tent for the sake of a few dollars in core funding. The government does provide core funding to a number of organizations in the province. And, I'm always talking about, of course, it's taxpayers' money we're talking about, obviously, and we had to be wise in the expenditures, but a lot of it comes down to choices. And I could easily find, I'm certain that if I had the power to do so, I'm sure within a few minutes I could easily find a few dollars, if that's what's required, for CADNL to be able to continue their great work, from a priority point of view, based on a lot of expenditures that have and continue to occur in government that are, questionable, to say the least. So it can be done. It should be done. CADNL needs to continue to exist. As I say, we have the numbers Ms. Reid put out, 30% of the population, and with an aging population, that's probably going to grow. And it's important that we have, there's a lot of issues out there in terms of access and inclusion. We still have provincially owned facilities or leased facilities that are still not properly accessible in this day and age. Is absolutely unacceptable to have anything like schools and public buildings that are not properly accessible. But those issues continue to exist. Certainly, there's lots of in the private. In terms of private business and facilities, there's lots of places that should be accessible to everyone that are not. So there's a lot of work that should be done there. And then there's also issues even around, say, like employment as an example. And I had a constituent reach out to me, and because of the inflexibility in existing government programs, I have an individual in my district who, with a disability, who was able and wants to work, but because of, like I say, a lack of flexibility in a particular program, is unable to work. And of course, now it's going to cost government more money having her not working than if she was working, not to mention the self-esteem issues and everything associated with that. And it is for issues like that we need an organization like CADNL. It's for issues like that we need that disability advocate, not just for the built environment, and access to facilities and programs and so on, but also things like, employment and other inclusion issues as well. There's a lot of people in our society that fall under this category. As I say, it's only going to grow with an aging population, and everybody deserves to be properly represented because we are all citizens of this province. We're all paying taxes, and there's an important group that's at risk of not having their voice heard if something is not done to ensure that CADNL continues to do their work, and certainly as well, this disability advocate, as was promised, could also go a long way in ensuring that this group is represented as well.
Yeah, it's important to get a solid answer on this. It's just back in late April, I think it was, that Minister Dempster was asked about, specifically about the core funding, about the disability advocate. And rather than, give a forward answer, it was all about what the Tories didn't do. That's not going to get us anywhere. So let's hope, and in fairness at the time, very much a caretaker government, we're in flux with the leadership issue. And so, it's hard to make a definitive, commitment or even, God forbid, a promise. when the Premier and the leader, the new cabinet and the new form of government has yet to take shape. So we'll give him a pass there. But let's hope we get some solid answer. Paul, I'm curious, we know we have a provincial election this year. You're running?
100%.
As an independent?
100%.
So no chance of...
Yep. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is there anyone trying to woo you, or is there any thoughts? Are you content? I mean, there was a time that the idea was, it'd be great to be an independent, but people point to the pitfalls, the difficulties of that. But you're holding your own. Have you had any leanings one way or the other, left or right?
Well, I would say, when it comes from an ideological point of view, I would say that I'm what you would call perhaps a red Tory. I guess is one of the terms that you hear kicking around, I suppose. But at the end of the day, regardless what party you're with, there's still that expectation that you have to toe the party line, and you have to support things that you may not agree with. You have to support things that may not be in the best interests of your constituents, and that's just something that I'm not prepared to do. And I know if I were to go with a party tomorrow and there was some, significant issue, I mean, I know you have to work together and there's a bit of give and take, but if there was a significant issue similar to Budget 2015 as an example in the levy, and there was an issue such as that were to come forward and I was with a party tomorrow, then I'm going to support my constituents. And if that goes against the party, I guess I'd be kicked out again. So what's the point of even going down that road, I would say? I'm going to continue on as I have. I have the ability to say what I want, do what I want, speak out on behalf of my constituents. In terms of constituency representation, I can tell you, and Hansard will show, that there's no MHA that have spoken in the House any more than I have. Certainly when it comes to your show and so on, things like that, I am confident in saying there's been no MHA that have spoken out any more than I have. And when people call my office, they get an answer. I work to the best of my ability. I'm always present in my district, and so far people have been happy with the representation they've received. I'm happy with being able to operate the way that I have, and I see no reason to change that. So yes, the short and precise answer is I do intend on running whenever the election is called, whether it be sometime soon before school gets out in June, or whether it be in late October, early November this fall. Whenever the writ is dropped, I will run. I will run as an independent. I will run on my record in my district, and then we'll let the chips fall where they may. The people will choose as they should, and I will accept their verdict, whatever it should be. Hopefully it's positive and I can continue on the work I'm doing. But if the people of Mount Pearl Southlands decide it's time to go, well, then I will gracefully fade off into the sunset.
Let your daughter take over, follow the footsteps.
Well, you know what? She really does enjoy her time on Mount Pearl City Council. I'm not going to speak for her what the future might hold. I'm very proud of what she's accomplished so far. And she's a brilliant young lady, like her mother, and perhaps not her father. And we'll see where she goes with it. Brian, before I take off, I do want to say, in fairness and balance to the conversation we just had about for persons with disability, I do want to acknowledge the fact that the provincial government, in fairness, in this budget, they are going to be providing I believe it's $400 a month starting in July for persons with disabilities, because there's a lot of people who are unable to work and so on, and it's about trying to get them above certainly the poverty line and so on. So I will say that is a positive thing for a portion of the people with disabilities, and so I do thank the government for that they're doing, and I have to give them credit for that, just to be fair. But that doesn't mean, just because you do that doesn't mean you ignore the other issues. So that's a positive thing. More work to be done. The promise was made. Let's get it done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to clarify, that is the Newfoundland Labrador disability benefit you're referring to.
Correct.
It's up to $4,800 a month. Starts in July of this year, and I think it's between ages of 18 and 64 who qualify, who originally qualified for the federal disability tax credit. Right. Pauline, thanks very much. Yep. I got Dave here furiously fact checking your claim that you've been on the air more than any other politician. But you know what? He's busy enough. We're just going to take your word for it.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, Paul. All right. Moving on. Bye. Dave, I think we're a little bit past the break, so let's take that break and be right back. Welcome back to the show. Carrying down to the last half hour or so now. Let's go right to the Best Coast. And John, you're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling from Corner Brook.
Yes, you are. That's why sort of subtle reference to the Best Coast, but I'm partial.
I just want everybody else to hear it. But anyway, I just had to cancel an appointment with a specialist because I have no way of getting there. I'm 79. I'm a paraplegic in a wheelchair, and there is no public transportation for us people in wheelchairs. And the doctor's office can't accommodate the stretcher. And believe me, you don't want to be running around Corner Brook in a wheelchair. So we have no way of getting there. So I just wonder, is there anybody else out there in my situation that they can't move because there's no transportation for us?
I'm sure there is, John. You know that someone's listening to this right now and saying there should be, and if there isn't, how can there not be? And I'm sure someone can help. Okay, so do you have these appointments often, and how have you gotten there before?
Well, there used to be a taxi here that was wheelchair accessible, but it's off the road now until further notice. So right now, we got no transportation to get around.
So there was only one vehicle available for this kind of a service, or just for you?
They used to have a service that operated at the hospital. It was called Caring Hands. And they had two vehicles, ambulance-type vehicles, but they've gone out of business. And there was one taxi here, and like I say, the taxi's off the road to further notice. So we have no choice. We can get to the hospital on the stretcher, but as for doing anything else, if we want to go shopping or anything like that, we just can't do it. We're stuck behind four walls all the time.
There are home support programs throughout the province. There's a 211, of course, number, and 211 Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm just speaking just right off the cuff here right now. If you dial 211, you can speak to someone directly, and there's a form you can fill out and that sort of thing. I have not dialed the number. I don't know how it works. I just haven't called that number before, but I know there's got to be an option, and it's sad. I'm really disappointed and shocked that you had to cancel. Getting an appointment, period, let alone with a specialist, is just, it's hard enough as it is, and if you have to cancel it because of transportation, I really feel horrible for you, to be perfectly honest. Let me see. There's the Western. Okay. Yeah, Western Memorial Regional Hospital Ambulance Service. Okay, obviously that's with the hospital. But as far as the accessibility and getting yourself to a specialist appointment, is it in Corner Brook? So you're in Corner Brook, and the appointment was in Corner Brook.
Yes. Well, it's also we can't get to the dentist. We can't go get our eyes checked because you can't go those places in stretcher, and we got no other way moving around.
Yeah, I got to plead a bit of ignorance only because I'm not on the ground and I haven't had to use the service, and I don't know anyone who's had to or been in the predicament. I know there are lots of people in that situation who, either struggle or have to, arrange long ahead of time to make sure they have a lift, especially anyone with mobility issues, and especially a quadriplegic like yourself. But so when you contact the people who would normally give you a ride or you would normally get transportation from, what do they say?
Oh, they're gone out of business.
Do they?
And I called the taxi company, and they said that the wheelchair accessible vehicle is not on the road until further notice. And I tried to call to see who the owner was, but I wasn't able to get a hold of them or get some idea when it's going to be back.
Well, I'm sure somebody out your way.
If it's going to be back on the road.
Yeah, this can't be just affecting you then. I mean, this must be a little bit of a bigger problem if there's just one vehicle and it's not being used. I don't know that for sure, but your understanding is there may only be one vehicle on the road. Now, I know I've got some other calls coming in. John, we have your number here. Keep listening. Got a half hour left in the show. I'm getting a couple of messages here, privately and otherwise, regarding this. So let's just get off to a couple of calls. I think there's one there now suggesting they may have a solution. But keep an ear. We got your number. If we can find a solution, I'm sure people listening out there are either screaming at the radios, and I do apologize. I plead ignorance on this one. It's not something off the top of my head I've had to avail of. So.
Okay, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Just keep a listen, keep an ear, and we have your number. If we get something specific, we'll give you a shout.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, John. What do you want to do, Dave? It's 28. We'll go take the news, or... Yeah. Okay, we're going to grab into the news a couple of minutes early. Got a few calls coming up, too, and yeah, anyone with a little bit of assistance for John right there, any information on getting her... Well, hopefully he can reschedule his appointment, but... Anyway, we'll find out. It's a couple of calls there now, and hopefully we'll have some information for John. Off to the news with Sarah Strickland.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Just a quick note, seeing some mentions online about a forest fire west of Badger. I'm not sure if that's directly along the side of the highway, but certainly in that area. So if you're seeing the smoke billowing, and if it's splitting the rocks like it is here in town, won't be hard to see that smoke billow. So keep an eye on that if you're in the area, west of Grand Falls, Windsor, in the Badger area. Okay, let's go. Last half hour, let's go right to David Tutton on line 3. You're on the air.
Hi, I'm calling from the Newfoundland Labrador Beekeeping Association. I'm the Director of Communications.
Yes,
and I just want to tell you that we have launched our No Mow May campaign once again. So please, residents of Newfoundland and Labrador, do not cut your grass until the end of the month. We want the yellow dandelions to come through. They are so important, not only for honeybees, but for native bees, native pollinators. They're one of the first things that come up and are so important in getting our bees, etc., through the cold, wet winter that we've had, and get them started into the new year. So please, we're just asking if you don't cut them. And I was impressed last year. I live in Holyrood, and I was impressed. I drove through CBS, and it looked beautiful. All the sides of the road were absolutely yellow. It was gorgeous. I wanted to take photographs. It was so beautiful, and I just thought it'd be a great idea if around the province anyone has a street that is yellow or a town that looks yellow, take photographs and put it on our website, onto our Facebook page. You'll find it at NL Beekeeping, and just look for that, the NL Beekeeping Association on Facebook, or you can go to our website, which is nlbeekeeping.com, and post your photographs of the beautiful yellow streets and yellow dandelions, etc. It would be wonderful. And if you want to get down close and take a photograph of a bee on a site, put it there as well. We'd love to see them. Put your name to it so we know who it is and whereabouts you're located. And we would be absolutely really pleased to see as many of those pictures coming onto our site as possible. And at the end of this month is our annual general meeting being held in St. John's, and that's open as well. If folks would like to come and have a look at that, go to our website, nlbeekeeping.com, and there's a place there that you can sign up and come in and join us and see what it's all about. So, there we are.
David, this is by far one of my favorite conversations of the year, because we all know what it means if you're calling and telling us not to mow our lawns.
And I was out looking at my bees this morning, and I was out looking at my bees on Monday, and I got my first sting of the year. I did something stupid, and they stung me. My arm is going down, but
Well, that's ungrateful. That's ungrateful for you.
Yes, but I stuck a teaspoon into the hive and tasted some of the honey, and it was beautiful.
Did you do that before or after? Was that before or after the sting? Because now I know why it happened.
Afterwards, they stung me, so I said, "You're paying."
So you took you took your fee.
I took my fee, but bees won't attack you if you don't do something and crush them or attack the hive or something of that. They leave you alone because if they sting you, they die. So they don't want to sting you. But I had my bee suit I'd given to a friend who was looking at the bees with me, and I put on a different jacket, and a couple of bees went up my sleeve, and that was my problem.
Oh my God! You're giving some people the willies here now. I will. The bees may not if you bug them, but the friggin' wasps or something else.
The wasps are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason. They're the bad guys. But I have a lush bit of green, and I've seen some dandelions coming up this morning in the dew of the sun that was pushing them up, and it's tempting. You see the lush there, you see the green, you want to just I'm one of those. I like a Major League Baseball outfield in my backyard. I just like the lines of it, and I like to cut it around the edges and nice and crisp and clean. But to be honest with you, when I walk the neighborhood, and especially up, say, towards Churchill Square from my house and back and forth to the neighborhoods there, I see a lot more wilder lawns, like people letting it go, giving the wild, there's a word for it, I just can't remember it off the top of my head, but letting it grow in the wild and having all the different types of weeds and that sort of thing that would naturally come up, and how much better that is for the lawn, although, we know people love to have it nice and pretty and crisp and clean.
Well, quite honestly, I got rid of my lawn years ago. I plowed it up, and I put scattered other seeds in, and I've got flowers in my garden year round. There is no lawn. There's nothing to cut. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to pay for gas for a lawnmower. Yeah. I don't have to go and push a stupid machine across the front of the house. It's full of flowers, full of bees, and it can stay that way. And I've got fruit trees and everything else out there, and I get a good crop. And then I've got neighbors. I go and deliver a bottle of honey to each one of my neighbors every year just to say thanks for not using insecticides and pesticides and what have you. And a couple of my neighbors give me a basket full of either fruit or fruit jams or jellies, and they say, "This is your fault." And they give me a basket full of stuff. They say, "Ever since you've kept bees, we've had bumper crops of apples, bumper crops of cherries and plums and vegetables and what have you. This is your fault. Here, take them."
Yeah, as a term of endearment, we should say.
As a term of endearment. So, I've made friends with my neighbors, and one of the neighbors says he and his wife sits out the back and with their coffee in the summer early in the morning, and they listen to the bees in their apple tree and stuff, and they just find it so relaxing. And it is true. And even if you don't have a beekeeper living next door to you, bees travel about 5 kilometers from their hive to go and collect honey or nectar and pollen. So they travel a good way around. So you might not even recognize that you've got bees visiting. You might not even notice them, but they're there. So please treat them carefully. Please treat them with respect. Please don't cut your lawns right now. There's a number of things coming up. The pussy willows are in flower right now, and bees love them. The dandelions are there. Some of the spring bulbs, crocuses, hyacinths, those sorts of things they love. They don't like daffodils. They don't like tulips.
I don't know what it is, I love just walking past a bee when it's doing its work and it doesn't do a thing. I love just the thought that it knows I'm okay, I'm just moving on and we both just exist, as opposed to the friggin' wasp. I know I've said this twice, but they're just nuisances. David, coming up to a break, only because I got to watch the clock here. One more time, when and where is the AGM?
The AGM is in St. John's, and you'll find the information for that on our website, nlbeekeeping.com, and post your pictures on our Facebook site. You'll find that in NL Beekeeping Association. So please do that. Let us know you haven't mowed your lawns and that you've got dandelions, and show us your communities. We want to see how many have gone absolutely yellow with dandelions, and we'd be really pleased. And if you want to put close-up pictures of bees visiting, we would be happy to see them.
Put
your name there, tell us what community you're in, and it would be wonderful.
That sounds
Thank
great.
you ever so much for the No More May campaign. Your children and grandchildren may have come home from the schools and told you about it because we've been teaching in the schools as well. But yes, you're more than welcome to come and visit our bees and come and see what we do and get involved and ask for information. We're here to reach out to you. We want to promote beekeeping in this province for backyard beekeepers and for commercial beekeepers, and we're open to people who are not even members. So give us a shout. Find out more about us.
And when you're getting down, as you said, to take those pictures of the bees actually doing their work, make sure you get some permission from them. You know, we have problems with photographs here. We want permission from the bees. If we post any photos, we're going to hear it on social media. So, you know,
I don't think the bees are going to mind. They usually smile at you and they hum a happy little tune as they do so.
Well, that's good to know, David Tutton. Thank you so much. With the NLB Keeping Association, David, thanks again.
You're more than welcome.
Thanks. All right. On that happy note, on that sort of spring thinking, summer's thinking, don't mow your lawn thought, let's take the last break of the morning. Off the break. Welcome back to the program. Into the home stretch now. Let's go to line 5 and Emma Langlois with the Senior Business Development Manager with Hockey Helps the Homeless. You are on the air.
Hello, good morning.
Thank
you so much for having me on today. We're excited to be here in Newfoundland.
Our pleasure. You know, Emma, just while we were on the break, just call up your website. Nice, big, shiny, youthful picture there of Terry Ryan right on the website. Wow,
exactly.
He wishes he still looked like that. Tell us all about it. You guys are here on the ground. What's going on?
Yeah, of course. So we are Hockey Helps the Homeless. We run 21 Pro-Am tournaments across the country, but it's our first time here in Paradise. So we're very excited. We're at the Paradise Double Ice Complex tomorrow. We've got teams coming out, local players to play with some of the pros. So Terry Ryan, as you said on the homepage of the website there, has been our honorary chair for this event. So he's been a huge hand in making this happen, and all of the proceeds from the event go to Choices for Youth. So 100% of those net proceeds stay local to help youth here in Newfoundland and Labrador, which we're very excited about. And there are tons of ways to support. So folks that are looking for ways to get involved, even though it's coming up quick, it's tomorrow. There are many ways. So one, we have some fellow Shoresy co-stars of Terry's coming out. So Dolo from Shoresy has a show tonight at TJ's Pub. Terry will be there. I'm sure he'll tell some great stories. They'll talk filming Shoresy, and Dolo will do one of his rap sets. It'll be a ton of fun. So that's tonight at TJ's at 8:30. You can get tickets either online or at the door. And then we also have a silent auction that's open to anyone. We can ship the goods to you, and it has something for everyone. So whether you're looking for Mother's Day gifts for this weekend, we have earrings and those sorts of things, lots of jewelry. We've got signed jerseys, Habs jerseys, Leafs jerseys, Bruins jerseys. We've got fun sports experiences, whether it's a golf round with Terry or curling lessons with Team Greg Smith. We have a ton of gift cards to local businesses. So lots of ways for folks to support or to donate to the event. So if you head to hhth.com and click on the Newfoundland and Labrador event, all that will be there for folks that are looking for a way to support the important cause.
Yeah, T's got a few stories.
Oh yeah.
Some that we can tell on the air and some we can't. But of course, that's the hockey. that's the hockey world and the dressing room world. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to get down there for a few minutes if I can tonight. Just tell us how it plays out tomorrow, so anyone can just pop by, and what ways can you donate, and just and who's playing.
Yeah, definitely. So anyone can stop by, most certainly. The schedule's available online at hhth.com, but we will have games running from about 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. with a break for the players at lunchtime. Anyone's welcome to come check it out. We do encourage anyone coming by to make a donation or to bid on some silent auction items. So that will all be available on site or online at hhth.com, and then clicking the Newfoundland and Labrador event. And we've got a great pro lineup. So like I said, Dolo from Shoresy's also come out to join Terry for this one. We have Paul McLean of NHL playing and coaching fishing fame. We have Mike Krushelniski, Brian McGrattan, who holds the AHL penalty minutes record. I believe it's over 500 penalty minutes in one season, which has not been beaten in many years. So
solid
a great
sniper.
lineup, and oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so it's sure to be a great day, and we're planning to make this an annual event for years to come. So we're excited to be here for the first time and can't wait to watch it become a marquee event over the next few years.
And how long has it been in existence, the Hockey Helps the Homeless? Like, how long have you been doing this?
Hockey Helps the Homeless, we're on our 27th season. So since 1996, with, a break for COVID in there, like all events companies had, but we have raised, we've actually granted, so cut checks to our beneficiary partners across the country for more than $28 million since our inception. So It's a model that works well for us. It's a ton of fun as well. So it's a great way to, get involved in the local community, support folks that are vulnerable locally while having a great day surrounded by hockey pros and having the fun side of that as well. We would love, in the perfect world, there would be no need for you to even be here. But sadly, we do know that homelessness is a massive issue across the country. But I guess I'll ask the question. Some are probably yelling at the radio. How come it took you so long? Good question. So our expansion was slow. We were at about 10 events pre-COVID, and then we've really pushed the model forward even more since then. Like you said, we're seeing the need rise so much for funding for folks in the sector who may be struggling to afford rent and groceries and all of those things that someone needs to maintain stable housing and maybe raise a family or whatever the demands on their life may be. So with that increase in demand, we've definitely made it our mission to make sure that all Canadians across the country have a safe place to call home, and that's led to our expansion. So we're very excited to be here. I wish, like you said, we'd done it sooner, because we're certainly seeing the passion from folks locally, both on the hockey side of the coin and on the helping folks locally side. So we're really encouraged by the support that we're seeing. We encourage everyone to find a way to get involved, whether it's coming out to Dolo Show tonight, stopping by the arena tomorrow, or simply donating online. We really want to have the community get behind this one and make it as successful as it can be, and provide some much needed support for Choices for Youth. Absolutely. Emma Langlois, Senior Business Development Manager with Hockey Helps the Homeless. Better late than never. Thanks for the call. Thanks so much. And good luck. Have a good day. Thanks. Okay, let's see. Off to line one. Last caller of the morning. Robert, sorry for the wait. Ironically, you're calling about wait times, but sorry for your own wait there. Go ahead, you're on the air. How you doing? How's it ring? I'm calling from the Best Coast. Oh, yeah. So you're also on the West Coast. The Best, B-E-S-T. Yeah. That's right. Yep. Okay, I second that emotion. And I tell you, Sarah Strickland is doing a real good job, and we got lots more up here. Likely we need some. Lots. So I hear there's lots of good others from the Crossing area. Yes, absolutely. Oh, big shout out for Sarah Strickland. She's a trooper. Yes. Oh yeah, one of the best. Absolutely. But we got a lot more too. Well, send them on. Okay. We just had a career. In the meantime, I called about the doctors, okay? Yeah, sure, go. What happened to all those doctors that were going to get more overseas and crowd from the college or wherever they come from, go over there and recruit some people, and less I heard, you could have a doctor any day. Call any day, you have a doctor. But that was all that. Well, the incentives are still in place. Where to go with this? I mean, it's a large conversation. I mean, trying to find the right specialties for the right areas. The recruitment is, it's not. Faint of heart has been used here a lot this morning, but it is true. So, whether it's foreign doctors, which we are, regularly have recruitment programs in place, or if it's domestically across the country, and we know that the provinces are in the process, and whether it's the barriers, the interprovincial barriers that we're trying to break down across various provinces, like we just signed an MOU with New Brunswick there a couple of weeks ago. Some people kind of skeptical of it, saying there's not a lot to it, and it kind of formalizes what already existed. But for whatever reason, there are efforts ongoing. Whether or not and how long it takes to make differences on the ground is the big thing. I mean, we know recruiting is ongoing. It has to be, or at least we hope it is, and we hope it is successfully, because the need, where one leaves or retires, there's an opening again, and yet it's one step forward and two steps back. It feels like it's a big issue with this. With a couple of minutes left in the show, Robert. But what's been your experience yourself? Do you have a family doctor, and are you having any luck?
No, I got a family doctor now.
Well, you're one up on everybody else, or most people.
Well, I don't know. He's in Ontario.
Oh, okay. So what do you do virtually?
He calls me on the phone. Well, this is the first time, right?
Right.
So I mean.
And how's it working out?
Pardon?
How is that working out for you? The remoteness of it?
Not no good at all. It's only to me. It's only a money racket for him fellas. They get no interest in you. What can I do for you today? I can help you. That's that garbage, right? And you got our time to understand what he's saying too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it helps to have someone who knows you and you can sit across from in a doctor's office and they can actually diagnose it. There's only so much you're going to figure out on a Zoom call or a phone call or a teleconference, in a perfect world.
We've had a medical school here for 50 years, okay? Right?
Well...
And what did we get out of it? We're worse off now than we did when we put medical school there. So when I come here 30 years ago, you go up to the hospital and see a doctor ASAP. You can't do that now. You're up for anywhere from 7 to 10 hours to try to see a doctor, and you're up from pain, sick, and everything else. I mean, we had a premier that was a doctor with fistus. Yeah, I liked him. I vote for him again. But what I'm saying to you is that he didn't do a lot, right? And John Agee there, even though he did last. No, I don't know. It's the biggest miss that I've ever seen. Right now, it was Alsace in Newfoundland.
Yeah, and once again, 1967 pops up, founded in 1967, the Mon Med School, officially. It wasn't founded to, simply fill the stocks of Newfoundland and Labrador either. I mean, local students, there are seats for outside external students. And, before the crunch, some would say we weren't proactive enough before COVID, but COVID certainly shone the light on the deficiencies in our healthcare system, and it forced us to pull up the bootstraps and get to work maybe a little bit later than it should have, and maybe we should have been on top of it before that. But in any event, it caused, as we all know, changes in careers, changes in locations, changes in everything and how people wanted to view and retirements. And so, the effort to restock our family doctors continues. It's as difficult as it gets, and we're forced to have remote doctor and medical advice as you have. Robert, I'm right out of time for the show. I'm back here, believe it or not. Sorry to inform everyone. Tomorrow morning, if you want to continue the conversation, but I got to get off to the news. Thanks for the call.
Okay, my buddy.
Take care. Bye. All right, that's a good show. Dave, thanks very much. Behind the glass, everyone drive safely, arrive alive. VOCM cares.